Hello, welcome in. It is a position breakdown episode with Eric Cain. I'm Josh Ward here. Thanks for being with us on 99.1 thesportsanimal.com or wherever you might be checking out the video as we continue with the isolation. Still plenty of time to talk about Tennessee football for when Tennessee football returns. Eric, how is everything going through this isolation period?
It's going well, and a lot of people thought that there would be nothing to talk about, or how were you going to be able to do your jobs being in sports radio? But there's always something to talk about. I really feel like our listeners are always engaged, but if not now, even more so, just because it's kind of creating an escape. But also, people want to tune in to find out the latest and what's going on with COVID-19 and everything else. And so
Sure.
it's been. I'm not going to say this period's been fun because we need to get back to normalcy, but as far as work goes, it's kind of business as usual.
It is. So as we continue here, a reminder, we're providing news, updates, all that good stuff all day long on 99.1 The Sports Animal. You can always go back and listen in the podcast section of the WNML app. If you're an Apple user, Apple Podcasts have all of our shows, all of our interviews. So we have a ton of content available for you at all times. Today, we're going to talk about Tennessee's offensive line. And I think it's a position group, Eric, that a lot of people look at and say it's going to be a lot better. So Tennessee's football team should be improved. And I definitely think that's possible, and maybe it's probable. Questions that remain would include Cade Mays. What's his status? He is currently still waiting on a waiver from the NCAA, and there's still plenty of time to find out if he'll be ready to play. Of course, I know fans want to know as soon as possible, and I'm sure Cade and his family in Tennessee does as well. But if Cade is eligible to play, and I think that he probably will be, that's a huge boost for Tennessee's offensive line. We can get into what position he might play, where he might fit in best as well. But the questions would include Cade Mays' eligibility, what kind of jump Wanya Morris and Darnell Wright can make heading into their second seasons, and then just the overall progress as you have veterans like Brandon Kennedy and Trey Smith coming back. Trey Smith coming back is obviously the biggest news item for the offensive line, considering how proven he is and how big of an impact he can make on Tennessee's team.
You just picture yourself now to where we are looking at this offensive line, kind of breaking it down spring of 2020. Think about heading into fall camp 2017. Think about heading into spring practice 2018 when really Jeremy Pruitt was struggling to find 10 guys to run two different offenses, 10 offensive linemen to run two different sets of offenses in spring practice. And some of the question marks that have been there for Tennessee's offensive line the last couple of years. Now, there's some question marks heading into the season and heading into the summer periods. But really, you feel a lot better now than if you're a Tennessee fan than you have in quite some time. Trey Smith, we spoke on it last week a little bit, kind of during this Zoom series, and I mean that's undoubtedly the biggest returner for Tennessee, a leader, a great guy, an NFL talent, and so getting him back really makes this offense that much more dangerous. Having Cade Mays, the thought process is that yes, he will be eligible, but who knows up until the NCAA finally decides, because you never know what's going on with the NCAA. But with those two guys, you have two guys who are seasoned, who are battle tested, who are dirty, who are gritty, and who make any offensive line a really, really strong unit. Again, you mentioned where would Cade Mays play? He can play all over the place. He's seen time at both guard positions, at right tackle. He played left tackle in the Sugar Bowl for Georgia just a couple of months ago. He's the kind of guy that, if eligible, he can slide in there at right guard, probably for Tennessee, and really kind of stamp this unit as ready to go, because you love what you have in Brandon Kennedy coming back as a sixth year. You sandwich him around your two dogs and Trey Smith and Cade Mays, and then with a healthy Wanya Morris, you like where he is at left tackle. And then really going into fall camp, in my opinion, the biggest battle on that offensive line really might be the only battle, except for some depth pieces here and there, would be at right tackle with Darnell Wright and Kayron Calvert.
Yeah, and I would not rule out Kayron Calvert at all. I thought the progress he showed this past season was a really good sign. Calvert's a guy that he has the physical makeup, I think, of what Jeremy Pruitt would look for in an offensive lineman. He's gotten some work over the last couple of years at guard and at tackle, and he showed that he could help them out there on the outside. Now, he needs to be better, just like Darnell Wright does, but I think it's natural to say, well, Wright was the five-star player, he's the starter, and maybe he will end up being the starter. If he is, that's not going to be a surprise really to anybody. My point would be, don't rule out Calvert, because I think Tennessee staff really likes him. And really the big questions around Calvert coming in, along with how would he develop, was, okay, is he going to be able to stay healthy? Would he physically be available to go through 12 games. And as he's gotten healthier and has been more reliable, he's gotten better as a football player. So if we're going to talk about Darnell Wright and his chance to improve, why wouldn't we think that K'Ron Calvert can improve as well? So I think that's a legitimate competition. I think that's also a good thing. If Wright's just there and he plays because you have to play him, I think that would limit what we would see from him in his development. The fact that Calvert is a legitimate option is going to push Darnell Wright to either be a better player to beat out Calvert, or Calvert starts.
Yeah, I think, competition brings out the best in everybody. That's why you like to have quarterback competitions. Now, you never like to have two guys, because if you have two of them, do you really have one? That's the old saying. But competition does bring out the best in everybody. And where in years past you just had to put a guy out there because you had no choice, Tennessee now has those depth options. Even look at the left side. We're talking right side right now. Look at the left side. Wanya Morris is your starter. Did he play great his freshman year? No, but he's your starter at left tackle when healthy. But Jameer Johnson's there, a guy that's played both guard and tackle on the left side. So that depth you feel really good about moving forward. But you're right, with K'Ron Calvert and Darnell Wright. Calvert's a guy that kind of came in, was really big. He came in as a tackle, has moved down to guard. He's battled some injuries, but Will Friend, Jim Chaney, and Jeremy Pruitt proved last year that they want to play K'Ron Calvert. They found a number of different times throughout the season to plug and play him. He started at right guard some. He started at right tackle some. And he's a guy that's really developed throughout his time at Tennessee. So I believe that's a real possibility for K'Ron Calvert, not only to play this year some, but to really challenge the five-star Darnell Wright for that starting gig. And, say K'Ron Calvert beats out Wright and starts game one. Will he start game two? I don't know. We'll have to see. I think you're going to see both of them a little bit this season. What you would like to see if you're a Tennessee fan and if you're Jim Chaney and Will Friend is Calvert challenge Wright, but Wright rise to that challenge and solidify himself as that guy there at right tackle. But I wouldn't count out either one of those guys. I think K'Ron Calvert really has a chance to step in and play a lot of football for Tennessee in 2020.
What do you think about the center position with Brandon Kennedy back? Jerome Carvin's a guy who is an option at guard and center. Cooper Mays is a player who could be a potential starter in the future at center. He'll be a true freshman this upcoming fall from Catholic, younger brother of Cade Mays, of course. But Brandon Kennedy coming back, the impact there, and then maybe some of the options that Tennessee has to work with at the center and guard positions. I think there's more depth there for Tennessee to feel good about than in the past couple of years.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a lot of depth. And again, this is just a luxury Tennessee has built so far throughout Jeremy Pruitt's tenure, is having options on the offensive line. You love Brandon Kennedy coming back. Played one game his first year at Tennessee back in 2018. Came back. He was the only offensive lineman to start in 2019 all. 13 games total. And really that bowl game, should he have played? I guess he was healthy enough to play, and he played all right with that minor knee scope. But getting him healthy, getting him back, and kind of tying that entire unit together, that's what the center does. He makes all the calls. He starts the count. If you're there at center, you're counting your guy one, and then it goes down the line, 2, 3, whether it be a shade, a four technique, a backer, whatever it may be. But I like Brandon Kennedy as center, and I think he, again, along with those veteran guards, is going to really anchor this offensive line. Jerome Carvin's a guy that I really like. He's very durable. He's very versatile, can play both guards, has played both guard positions, can fill in at center as well. He's a great swing man to have as a depth option. Look at Ollie Lane. Ollie Lane's more of a tackle in this offense, really hasn't seen a lot of time so far. He's a local product from Gibbs High School, but during that bowl season, he was really repping as that second team center behind Jerome Carvin if it came down to it. So Ollie Lane is an option at center. Another local product, Cooper Mays, really just needs to be healthy right now. If spring practice were going on, Cooper Mays would not be available. He battled a lot of injuries, had the offseason foot surgery, and really just trying to get him healthy and he's put on a lot of weight from this time last year to now. And so getting him big, right, and healthy is first and foremost. You also had Javante Spraggins, who is an incoming freshman. I talked to him a couple weeks ago, and he can play either guard position or at center. He was actually rated as a center, but he kind of slides in more of a guard now. And James Robinson, who's more of a guard option, but also can snap the ball if need be. So, you play the name game, you're listing off about 8 or 9 guys that can play for Tennessee. Obviously, these freshmen need to come in and get some reps under their belt. But again, Tennessee, a lot of options in the interior.
Yeah, I want to see what Chris Okporogane and Jackson Lampley, two guys from
Another
the
name that I didn't even mention is our program, who the coaches really like.
Yeah. I think he has a ton of potential as an athlete, and Lampley was highly ranked in that 2019 class. A lot of the attention there, understandably so, was on Wanya Morris and Darnell Wright, and they did play a lot as true freshmen. But
Mm-hmm.
how the other guys develop will say something about how the offensive line develops here this year and over the next couple of years as well. And I think it's worth repeating, we are still talking about potential. There's a lot of potential with this offensive line, but if Tennessee's offense is going to reach its potential, and in a year where you have to replace Juwan Jennings and Marquez Callaway and Dobwin Anderson, three of your more important playmakers in the passing game, it's more likely we're talking about the offensive line and the impact it can make on 2020. So how this group comes together, aside from quarterback play, I think is one of the most impactful factors and one of the biggest questions heading into this upcoming season.
Yeah, I think so too. You look at, and this is no, I'm not saying that Jerry Garantano is not going to play well this year, or Brian Maurer, Harrison Bailey, whoever the quarterback may be, but look at all the teams that, are good teams, good solid teams that might not have great quarterback play, but adequate quarterback play. All those teams have in common a strong offensive line, usually a good running game as well. And this offensive line has the potential to be a really, really strong unit, regardless of who is under center, leading the team throughout whichever game it is. I like this offensive line. I like the potential of this offensive line. Again, still some work to do, but as we mentioned last week, Josh, as much improvement as we saw in terms of pass protection, and really when you go look at the stats from 2018 to 2019. Tennessee's offensive line only gave up 2 less sacks. It feels like so much less because Garantano wasn't getting hit as much, but that was the thing. There was limited QB hits compared to 2018, but it did improve in the pass protection. This unit still as a whole has got to run block better. BYU hitting, Austin Pope talked about it in one of his media availabilities. The team really focused on hitting the perimeter, running outside zone, outside lead there against BYU earlier in the year. Tim Jordan had a nice game against Alabama. And then, of course, Eric Gray against Vanderbilt and really against Indiana in the Texas Gator Bowl. But overall, I think for this unit to take the next step, Josh, would be to have an adequate run game and allow, whether it be Eric Gray, Tim Jordan, Ty Chandler, whoever it may be, to, near up, 80 to 100 yards rushing a game.
The offensive line is going to play a big role in what happens in 2020. We are doing positional breakdowns every week. Eric Cain and myself, a Zoom video series for you, whether you're watching on YouTube, 991thesportsanimal.com. We're all over the place for you. So next week, why don't we talk about those running backs, Eric? We'll talk about the guys that will have a chance to make more plays, I think, within the offense, both as runners and receivers. There's potential that's been shown by Eric Gray. There's that word again, but we'll talk about running backs next week as we go position by position through the summer to get you ready for the 2020 college football season. Eric, good stuff today. We'll talk again soon.
Yeah, looking forward to it, Josh.
Thanks for being with us here today. Remember, we're covered all day long. We're live and local every day on the Sports Animal, 99.1 on your FM dial. You can listen online. You can listen on the WNML app. Your smart speaker at home, just tell it to play 99.1 The Sports Animal. I told you, we're everywhere. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time right here on our Football Zoom series.